Outdoor Hotline is made possible in part by the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, AETN's partner in conservation.
Good evening and welcome to Outdoor Hotline. I'm Tony Brooks. Tonight we're going to tell you about projects being conducted and planned by the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission to improve and maintain our state fisheries. We're going to learn about education programs to teach Arkansans of all ages about conservation, and we'll hear about the quail initiative in Arkansas and some new hunting and fishing regulations for the fall of 2018. And best of all, we have a panel of experts here to answer your questions. All you have to do is call us at 1-800-662-2386. Let's get started now with a look at how the Game and Fish Commission is working to improve fishing opportunities here in the natural state.
The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission uses numerous tools to maintain and improve the state's fisheries. But one of the best is the agency's renewed focus on improving aquatic habitat. It's part of the Fisheries Division's strategic plan that calls for 2 major fish habitat improvement projects each year.
Greer's Ferry was chosen as the flagship, guinea pig, whatever you want to call it, for the project. We had a lot of material to work with. We had a good area to work out of. It was the first habitat project of this scale that's ever been done in the state by our fisheries management, by anybody that I know of.
The agency embarked on another large-scale habitat project this past summer on Lake Chico, once again pulling together game and fish staff from all across the state to build better angling opportunities for the public. For the Greer's Ferry project, the Game and Fish Commission worked with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The project served dual purposes: remove invasive cedar trees from the Corps' Choctaw Recreation Area, and then use the trees to create fish habitat in the lake.
Greer's Ferry is not a real productive body of water. It's an old impoundment. It's 60 years old now. It was built initially 100% for flood control, and power generation was added later. So what we're trying to do is just increase some of that complex woody habitat to give these fish more benefits, more places for forage fish to hang out, and also provides good spawning cover. All of our reservoirs are aging reservoirs, hadn't been any new reservoirs built in a long time. And over time you lose a lot of the woody structure, which is very important for the fish.
Lake Chico in far southeastern Arkansas is a natural oxbow of the Mississippi River. For the Chico Habitat Project, Game and Fish used artificial plastic structures. Unlike the Greer's Ferry project, there wasn't an abundance of readily available natural material along the lake shoreline.
By putting in the brush attractors, be it cedar trees or hardwoods, or even some of the commercially made or other artificial habitats that are available with a lot of lateral branching, that complexity gives the fish a lot more habitat to work to. The base of it, it starts collecting biofilm or paraphyte in the small algae that is the base of the aquatic food chain. That attracts your small fish, your bait fish, and in turn your bait fish will attract your larger predator fish. Some fish will use it as cover and lay around it. Others will run the periphery of it, feeding on the outside edges and stuff.
These artificial structures create more than fish habitat. They also create fishing opportunities.
We have these placed on our interactive map on the Game and Fish website, and you can zoom in till you come to the lake of your choice, like Greer's Ferry, and then you'll see little blue fish icons pop up. And if you go to these icons, you can get the GPS coordinates, and these can be downloaded and put in your handheld unit or your boat sonar unit, and it can put you right on.
And joining us now to answer your questions about fishing in Arkansas are Matt Schrader, the fisheries management biologist, Cody Wyatt, reservoir habitat biologist, and Aaron Kern, fisheries management biologist, all with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, here to answer your questions. Call us at 1-800-662-2386 with your questions. And Cody, let's start with you. What habitat projects has the Fisheries Division conducted across the state this year, and what goes into conducting a habitat project?
Well, these habitat projects are a lot of work, obviously, but they're worth it because they provide incredible fishing opportunity for our anglers, first of all, and they're good for the fish. So it's kind of a win-win. And so we've seen in the video there a good setup, but that last fall we worked on Greer's Ferry, sunk literally hundreds of cedar trees that the Corps was removing anyway from Choctaw Rec area. So like I say, there you get a win-win-win. You know, you're getting fishing opportunities, getting rid of some cedars, and providing habitat for the fish. And then also last fall we did the Lake Chico habitat project, where we used artificial structures, built them out of PVC, and we ended up sinking nearly 500 artificial structures in Lake Chico last fall. And that's not the end of it. As part of our fisheries strategic plan, we plan on doing a couple of these large-scale, all-hands-on-deck habitat projects per year. So coming up this fall, we'll be on Bull Shoals, sinking cedar trees up there. So
you guys got a busy year coming
That's
up.
right. That's right.
Aaron, fall's not just a time for hunting. There's a lot of good fall fishing opportunities for anglers across Arkansas.
Yes, that's correct. Fall, unfortunately, tends to be a somewhat overlooked season for fishing. Everyone's focused on getting out in the woods and doing some hunting. But as the water starts to cool down in the fall, fish start to become more active. They start feeding more. Basically, they're trying to put on some fat before the lean months of the winter time. And the female fish are also starting to develop their eggs for the spawn the following spring. So, instead of giving specific lakes that would be good fall fishing destinations, I thought I'd talk about it just a few classic fall fishing patterns that anglers can apply statewide, to their backyard waters. The first one I'd like to talk about is reservoir fishing for largemouth and spotted bass. As the water starts to cool in the fall, shad begin to move shallow into coves, creek arms, things like that, looking for food. And the bass are right behind them. The key to that bite is anglers got to keep moving and fishing fast until they find fish. But when they find fish, the fishing can get really good. Another classic pattern I'd like to talk about is flathead and blue cat fishing in the fall. As the water starts to cool down in the fall, again, these fish really start to feed heavily, trying to put weight on for the wintertime. And then the final pattern I'd like to talk about is tail race fishing for trout. Trout are a cold water fish, so as the water starts to cool, they become more and more aggressive. Typical trout fishing tactics work really well in the fall, and anglers looking for bigger fish might choose to throw some swim baits or crankbaits.
So Matt, really, when you're changing your tactics for fishing in the fall, you really have to know what the fish are doing.
That's right, and really, the key to it all is you find the shad, you find the fish, and oftentimes in the early fall, you see the game fish, the bass and the crappie, kind of on points and along the channel edges, following those shad up creek as they kind of make their movement upstream. And so, like I said, the key is find the shad, find the fish.
Cody, what's the process when you're setting up new fishing regulations? And we have some new fishing regulations that will go into effect with the first of the year. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, that's right. Fishing regulations are a huge tool that we use, one of our primary tools that we use to manage the fisheries across the state, and to meet different objectives, whether it be increasing numbers or sizes or whatever else, just to allow an equal opportunity for those fish, to those fish. So we're not just randomly throwing out fishing regulations. A lot of thought and process goes into this, and actually if a regulation is to be brought forward in February, we, the Fisheries Division, Arkansas Game and Fish Fisheries Division, meet, and we run every regulation before every biologist in the state for an open conversation. So there's a lot of discussion, and you got to have everything in a row. You got to have justification for this, and then we'll run that through a public comment period. We want the fishing public to be able to add their take on it too, and so that's generally done in the month of May. And then after that, it'll go before the commission to be voted on. And once it's approved, it generally goes into effect the following January. So you're looking at nearly a year-long process. So we're just wrapping up like you said, the regulations that will go into effect January 1st, 2018. And most of those are lake-specific. Those will be in our Arkansas Game and Fish fishing regulation pamphlet that'll come out around the first of the year. We have a few statewide things such as gearing back alligator gar commercial fishing, and we a couple other measures that protect alligator gar. But like I say, a lot of them just locally specific. So check your fishing destination, check that Arkansas Game and Fish regulation pamphlet, and it'll be on our website, AGFC.com as well.
Good. Aaron, I understand that you guys are looking at a new statewide bait fish regulation. Tell me a little bit about it, when it will be implemented, and what's the reason for it?
Yes, that is correct. We have a proposed regulation right now that allows the use of live wild-caught bait fish only from the waters that the bait fish were caught from. Unfortunately, we have a number of what we call aquatic nuisance species, or ANS for short. These are species such as silver carp, zebra mussels, the northern snakehead, some species of crayfish, some species of plant that are not native to the state, and they've found their way into some water bodies in the state, and we don't want to see their range expand any more than it already has. Once these things get established in a water body, eradicating them is virtually impossible, and they can create devastating problems with the health and recreational value of these water bodies. So the intent of this bait fish regulation is to minimize the chance of an angler inadvertently moving an ANS fish species from one body of water to another. Right. Minnows, shad, other bait fish can be very difficult to tell from some ANS fish species, and we don't want a simple case of misidentification turning into a huge problem down the road.
Right. Matt, I got a pretty broad question here for you. How does the Game and Fish Commission use the money that we spend for fishing license?
Well, that is a good question, Tony. Basically, for every $10.50, that's how much a fishing license costs, we're able to leverage that money to get about $7 of federal funds. And so people going and buying fishing license, it helps us basically do our jobs. That money, we use that money for our sampling, for the equipment needed for sampling, for habitat projects, for stream restoration. We use it basically for everything, and even including our salaries. So it's important that anglers buy their fishing license on an annual basis, because basically that's providing us money to do our jobs.
Okay. Cody, we've heard about the family and community fishing program, and we've had some questions about when trout will be stocked in the program ponds across the state. Can you tell me about the program, and then when they'll be stocked?
Yeah, the family community fishing program is a program that allows cities and towns across the state to work with the Game and Fish to have fish stocked into their city ponds and lakes. Park ponds and stuff like that may go unutilized for fishing, can provide an awesome fishing spot right in people's backyard. And so what we generally do with those is we'll provide a set of rules, and we'll stock catfish through the summer months, and then trout in the winter. And the trout are always a big hit, because once the water cools off, we can stock trout farther south where people don't have a lot of access to trout. And we generally try to start stocking most of these ponds in November. It is temperature dependent. Sometimes it'll be pushed back to December, but basically November, December, January, and February are our trout months. And like I say, all that information can be found at AGFC.com, but there's probably a fishing opportunity right in your backyard if you just check it out.
I like that. Aaron, before the start of the show tonight, I heard one of the staff talking about that even if Arkansans don't fish, they should buy a fishing license, because something about leveraging federal dollars. Tell me about that.
Yes, that's correct, and it does seem somewhat counterintuitive to buy a fishing license even if you don't fish. But the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission is the state's leader in aquatic resource conservation. We monitor and protect a wide variety of aquatic animals, including fish, mollusks, crayfish, turtles, amphibians. A lot of our work across the state is either habitat improvement and restoration or monitoring of populations. And as Matt explained just a couple questions ago, for every fishing license that's sold, we can leverage that into a matching sum of money from the federal government. So for people that are interested in conserving the aquatic resources of the state, buying a fishing license helps us out quite a bit. I always tell people, you don't have to participate in fishing to help protect our aquatic resources.
And you're helping your friends who do fish.
Yes,
by buying
absolutely.
that license. Cody, there's probably a lot of people watching tonight who may not be interested in fishing, but care about natural resources, and those are the people we're encouraging to buy a license. But what about volunteer opportunities for people?
Yeah, and Aaron kind of touched on it. The Game and Fish is more than just hook and bullets. We manage a lot of other resources, and there's programs like our Stream Team program that coordinate trash pickups and adopt a stream and just monitor overall health of streams. And there's plenty of opportunities to volunteer and work with to help protect natural resources of our state, and a lot of that information can be found on AGFC.com, like I say.
Very good. Matt, tell me about the Bull Shoals Norfolk management plan process and what you hope to achieve with that.
Well, management plans in general are developed so that you have a certain set goals and objectives of what you hope to achieve. And so when you go through the management plan process, you're kind of evaluating what has happened in the past years with the management of a body of water. And so basically we'll go back and we'll look at past data from fish population sampling. We'll look at creel data from creel surveys, which is angler interviews, what people are catching. Mm-hmm. And we'll also have public meetings where we get anglers' opinions on different issues and kind of get what their ideal goals are. And then we help, we use what they want to achieve, but we put it in the framework of what data we have collected. So we tell them, okay, we can achieve this way, to help go towards those goals. And so a big part of it is getting, comments from the public, getting the public involved, getting them to make their voice known so that we know what they desire in these fisheries. And that's the gist of it.
Are these some of the way what we're doing tonight is probably one of the answers to this next question, but how do you guys reach out to communicate with anglers and get information out?
Good question. Events like this is a good mechanism. We also partner with our communication division a lot, and we create videos. We have our magazine, our Game and Fish magazine, and sometimes biologists like myself get to write an article occasionally. We have email blasts where they send out emails and let people know what's going on. And also YouTube videos of us doing our jobs a lot of times. And then kind of the newer things are the Facebook things. And specifically within fisheries, we have the Black Bass Program Facebook page. And this allows us to communicate data and other things to bass fishermen around the state. And so we're kind of broadening our communication, to the general public, and hopefully it's helping out.
If there are people out there, Aaron, that would like to learn more about fishing, how can the Commission help?
Well, fortunately, our webpage, www.agfc.com, if people click under the Fisheries tab, there's a wealth of information there. There's information there for the person that's thinking of going fishing for the first time, all the way up to an experienced fisherman. And for beginning fishermen that might not want to start out on their own, there's a number of hosted fishing events across the state. Wow. These are put on by our family and community fishing program that was discussed earlier, our aquatic resource education program, and there's also some derbies put on by our nature centers as well as our regional education staff.
So there's no excuse.
There really isn't.
You can learn, you can go fishing.
Nope. And Arkansas has got so much good fishing water that people will not have to travel far.
And beautiful places to go. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. With us tonight. And while we're on the topic of learning, let's take a look at just a few of the many excellent educational programs of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission.
At the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, we're all about conservation. You probably knew we did this. And this.
6.6.
And even this. But now more than ever, we're also using education to reach citizens of all ages. The Game and Fish Commission offers all sorts of programs to connect Arkansans with the natural state and foster conservation of our fish and wildlife resources for generations to come. You might even call it education on the wild side.
I've been coaching since the very beginning of this program in 2 different cities, and I've really seen how much of a difference the Arkansas Youth Shooting Sports Program has made in our kids' lives on and off the trap field.
I'm Hunter Throckmorton from Balnov, and my team made it to the state finals of the 2016 state championship. But I'm just one of more than 50,000 students who have taken part in sanctioned trap shooting events through the program. In fact, it's the largest state shooting sports program in the whole country.
The Arkansas National Archery in the Schools program reaches even more students.
More than 1,000 Arkansas students from 4th through 12th grade shoot in a state championship in Hot Springs each year. But that's just a drop in the bucket compared to nearly 60,000 students from hundreds of schools who take part through PE classes.
I had a student write me a card and just said, Mr. Couch, thank you for starting this at Akron. I was one that didn't have a lot of friends, wasn't involved in stuff, and these have become my friends. I'm involved in this, I'm loving it. It is making a difference in my life, and I get a lot of stories like that from kids that, you know, hey, we finally found something, a niche for us to fit in, and this is what we want to do.
We've been teaching hunter and boating education for a long time, and it's still one of our agency's most important ways to reach young Arkansans.
More than 16,000 Arkansans earn the Hunter's Education Card every year. These classes are not only making our great outdoors safer, but they are also turning out a new generation of ethical, responsible hunters, just like me.
The Game and Fish Commission is also making the state's waterways safer with its boating education program, which produces nearly 7,000 graduates a year.
The Game and Fish Commission's flagship firing range near Mayflower is currently undergoing major renovations that will allow it to serve even more Arkansans. We have several other ranges around the state, and we're working with cities right now to provide additional shooting opportunities for the public.
There we go, here's a better one.
The Game and Fish Commission issued more than 500,000 fishing licenses last year. We'd like to see fishing poles in the hands of even more Arkansans.
Our mobile aquariums were on the road 155 days last year. We saw over 600,000 Arkansans. They got a chance to be face to face with these fish. You never know when one of these encounters will hook the next lifelong angler.
This spring we'll be introducing the Fishing in the Natural State program, or FINS for short. This program will bring fishing into the classroom and encourage fishing as a healthy lifestyle that can last for a lifetime. Don't tell the students, but FINS programs also align with state curriculums in subjects such as math, science, and even language.
The Game and Fish Commission still reaches students the old-fashioned way, in the classroom. We offer many professional development opportunities for teachers, and with their help, we're teaching today's students to be tomorrow's partners in conservation.
One of my favorite aspects about the Arkansas Game and Fish programs is that it brings what my students are learning about into the classroom. So you're bringing the outside in.
My students love working with the Junior Duck Stamp Competition, and not only do they get to express their artistic creativity and increase their talent, but they get to learn about Arkansas waterfowl and their habitats.
Those are ducks.
Arkansas Game and Fish has 8 regional education coordinators around our state, and sometimes they get to come to my classroom, and that makes me so excited and the students so excited. Even though they're only in my room for 45 minutes, the impact that they make is for a lifetime.
We love going to the schools, but sometimes the schools prefer coming to us. Game and Fish operates nature centers in Fort Smith, Jonesboro, Pine Bluff, and Little Rock, and education centers in Yellville, Ponca, Columbus, and Casco.
Together, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission Nature and Education Centers hosted nearly 250,000 visitors last year alone. We presented more than 2,600 public programs, 2,000 school programs, and 45 teacher workshops. Unfortunately, we don't have a count for the number of memories that have been made.
It isn't spelled out in our mission statement, but the Game and Fish Commission is all about the business of making memories. Whether it's a youngster's first fish or a pair of mallards over the decoys, nature's mystery surrounds us and calls us to connect. These education programs are helping Arkansans answer that call every day.
And those are some outstanding programs. Joining us now to talk more about these and other educational programs offered by the Game and Fish Commission are Joe Huggins, who is AFGC Hunter Education Coordinator, Neil Curry of the Central Arkansas Nature Center, and Sheila Connerly, Education Specialist with the Game and Fish Commission. Thank you all for being here, and you may call in your questions, 1-800-662-2386. And Joe, let's start with you. Most of us have heard about the Hunter Education program in Arkansas. Tell me a little bit about it and when it began.
Well, Hunter Ed has been here a while. The program started in 1971. This program covers a wide variety of subjects. It's mainly focused on safety, but talks about firearm safety, firearm nomenclature, muzzle loaders, archery, tree stands, ATV safety, just a wide variety. But we also talk about responsibility and the ethics part of it.
Okay. Sheila, let's talk a little bit about your role there. There's so many educational projects that there are regional education coordinators. Tell me about these individuals and what they do.
Well, regional education coordinators are education specialists which go out to the schools and present to the public education on wildlife and conservation programs. We're responsible for designing, coordinating, and presenting wildlife and conservation programs to the public.
Neil, one of the area at the forefront of the national educational programs in Arkansas and the Game and Fish Commission are the Game and Fish Commission Nature Centers located across the state, and these were built with education in mind, of course.
They really were. The 4 big nature centers were set up in urban areas, so Fort Smith, Jonesboro, Pine Bluff, and Little Rock, because a lot of the folks in urban areas don't have as many opportunities, but we're finding a lot of folks in the rural areas also don't have those opportunities today. So the nature centers are like portals, and if they come to the nature center, they're going to find out how to get out and enjoy the outdoors.
Okay. Joe, we mentioned that, of course, we're talking about education, but you talked about the hunter education courses. Has it made a big difference in the number of accidents since it's been implemented? It
really has. I know we started keeping records back in the 1970s whenever the program began. And at that time, we would record anywhere from 45 to 50 firearm-related accidents. Since that time, we've seen those firearm-related accidents go down tremendously. I mean, just like last year, we had 28 accidents reported, but the thing is, the firearm-related accidents, we only had about 12. The majority of those accidents that we're having this time, at this time, is people falling out of tree stands. And so that's a message that we are working to get on. But it has brought those accidents down over the years.
So in the education course, you guys cover just about every aspect of safety and firearm safety.
We do. There's a regulation on the books that if you're involved in a hunting accident where medical assistance has to be given beyond first aid, that you have to report it to us. And what that does is allows us to get information so that if there is another area that we need to look into to try to put some emphasis on, we can do that, such as tree stands, or maybe even ATV safety.
Okay. Sheila, I want to go back to the regional education coordinators. How can I get in touch with a regional education coordinator in my area if I live in different parts of the state?
Well, there are 8 regional coordinators throughout the state. We each are responsible for certain counties within our region. The easiest way is to go to our Arkansas Game and Fish website, do a search for regional education coordinators. 8 names will appear with all their contact information, and we will get back with whomever calls.
Okay, Neil, we talked, and you mentioned this, and it was mentioned in the video. How many nature centers are there in the state, and where are they located?
Right now there are 4, and we have a 5th that's under development up in northwest Arkansas. But the 4 current ones, the first one was set up in Pine Bluff. Then we had Fort Smith in Jonesboro, and then Little Rock was the last one we built. But they hope to have a groundbreaking this fall for northwest Arkansas, and it'll be in Springdale. And then we're lucky that we have 4 education centers that are smaller facilities, and one of those is located up on Crooked Creek by Yellville. We have one down by Casco, Arkansas, called Cooks Lake. We have Grandview down in Columbus, Arkansas, and if you ever get up on the Buffalo River, we have Ponca, the Elk Education Center there.
I visited a couple of those, but I intend to get to all of them.
They're worth the trip.
They are delightful. Joe, you're talking about hunter education classes all across the state. Where do you find so many people to teach? There must be hundreds of classes.
Well, we do. We have a lot of classes that go on. That's the wonderful thing about this program, is that we look for the sportsmen, those people that want to give back and to their hunting heritage. And the way they've done that is to volunteer. And we use volunteers across the state to help teach hunter education classes. And there's a process they have to go through. We require them to have taken an Arkansas hunter education course. We put them, have them fill out an application, put them through a background check, and then we do a certification class with them, just so that we can let them know what the policies, procedures are, and how to set up a class and how to begin teaching. And we've got a great group of people out there, men and women alike, that teach these. And so if you take a class, most of those people up there, they're volunteers, they're not employees. So thank them for what they're doing. They're giving their time.
It'd be impossible to do it without them.
It would be. It really would be.
Sheila, are there any of the professional development workshops where participants can get teacher credit?
Yes. We do offer professional credit workshops through the Arkansas Department of Education. Most of these can have 8 hours of credit for the teachers. These are generally offered through our educational co-ops around the state, but also our AGFC facilities.
Neil, I know that the nature centers are different. All of them are different. What can we expect to find at the specific ones, and what different activities, I guess, that people can do outdoors there?
You will. Some of the centers have a lake where you might be able to try your hand at canoeing. Some of them have a trail system. Even in downtown Little Rock, we have the Arkansas River Trail right along the river, so you can benefit from that. We have archery ranges. We have BB gun blow-up targets. We have nature exhibits on the natural divisions of the state of Arkansas, so you won't see the same thing at each of the centers. It's going to be unique to that area.
Obviously, a lot of thought went into putting these together.
On the one we're working on now, it's about a 2.5-year process, even before we really get the construction phase going.
Now, are the admission fees and the hours the same across the state?
The great thing about it, it's free of charge to go to the centers. The hours are basically Tuesday through Saturday, 8:30 to 4:30. Sunday, most of the centers open 1 to 5, and then we are closed on Mondays to give our animals a break and get the building back ready to go. When we have thousands of school kids coming through, you've got to get things put back together.
Joe, with the hunter education course, do you have to go to class for every bit of it, or are there other options for getting information?
We do have some other options. I mean, the course itself is a 10-hour course, and it's basically a classroom-led course that you could go to. Other options that we have is we do have a CD that is free of charge that you can contact our office, or even go onto our website and send us an email and we'll mail it to you. Or if you'd rather not wait on that CD to get to you, you can go online and just go to our website and you take the course online on a computer-based course. You go through 9 chapters, there's little quizzes you have to pass, there's a practice test you have to pass. Once you've done that, then you'll contact one of our test sites, and then you'll be able to go and take the final exam at a test site. There'll be a voucher that you'll print out to take, so that gives you proof that you have completed the course online. So those are the 2 options, or 3 options if you want to look at it that way, that we have for offering hunter education.
Now, Arkansas kind of pioneered a lot of this. Do other states now follow suit? Are there other states that
there
require hunter
are.
education?
I mean, really the southeast region of the United States got together and worked on a CD together, and then since that time, there's been a lot of other states have taken on, started using online courses. Some of them you can just go take a test, like Arkansas. Some of them you have to go to a field day and go through some exercises. And so it's different in each state. So you really have to know what that state has and what they require if you're going to take that course in that state.
Sheila, I'm sure you have a lot of children that you guys work with. What are some of the more rewarding aspects of what you all do with working with kids?
Oh, just being able to teach them about conservation and wildlife, and really just teaching them to love the outdoors, just to go outside and have a good time, have fun, and enjoy nature. That's the most rewarding thing to me.
If an instructor wanted to plan a trip to one of the nature centers, what is the process that they need to go through?
All they have to do is go to AGFC.com, go under education and search nature centers. Then there'll be all the contact information there. We'll have one of our educators get in contact with the teacher, plan out the field trip, and tailor it to what their needs really are.
And I would imagine if someone out there wanted to help sponsor some of these programs, there'd be an opportunity for them to contribute to that as well.
Sure. We couldn't do what we do at the nature centers without our volunteers. And so there are opportunities there on a one-time basis or a continual basis. And it's a really rewarding experience when you're working with young people who are just now getting exposed to the outdoors.
When we talk about young people on the hunter education courses, was this primarily began for youngsters, and now I guess anyone, if you get a hunting license, you've
just about. It's required for anyone who's born on or after January 1 of 1969. And with that in mind, what you've got to look at is that we do have a lot of young people that are taking it, but we also have a lot of older people that are taking it. And one reason that they're taking it is because they may go to another state where it is mandatory. It's mandatory in 49 of the 50 states, but the age is different in each state. And so such as Colorado, there's a 20-year difference. In Colorado, if you're born on after January 1 of 49, you're required to have it. That's 20 years difference in Arkansas. So we have a lot of people that go out of state to hunt. So you need to check those regulations, but they do accept our hunter education card from Arkansas.
And you mentioned that tree stands were a big part of the hunter education course. Is that I guess that would be a common accident that you guys are trying to avoid?
It is. We started, like I said, in 1971, we started keeping hunting accident reports. Most of those were accidents from a discharge of a firearm. In 1986, we got to seeing and hearing about more and more tree stand accidents, so we started keeping records on tree stand falls. And that has really taken over our number of accidents that we've had throughout the year. That 28 that we had last year, I believe we had about 15 of them that were people falling out of tree stands. So that's something that we try to address and get people to know what type of equipment's out there that's available to them to help keep them safe, because we want some good memories to come from these hunts and not some bad ones.
I'll direct this next question to both of you. We think about Arkansas as being a very rural state, and lots of kids involved in fishing and hunting and outdoor activities, but we have several urban areas where a lot of these kids never get a chance to take part in these activities. Are you seeing more kids showing interest with the kids who live in the cities because of the programs you guys are doing?
Oh, definitely. Especially with the regional education coordinators, we get the opportunity to go out into the schools and into these rural areas, whereas the schools And these kids might not have access to or availability to go into our nature centers. So therefore, we bring the programs to the youth and to the kids.
And I would assume that'd be the same with the nature centers.
It is. We see children that have never been under the shade of a forest. So when you get them off the asphalt and the concrete, and to really show them to take a little closer look at those special areas that are in the urban areas, you just have to be able to find them.
That's great. Thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you.
It's wonderful, and it is such an attribute for Arkansas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here tonight. Now let's take a look at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's Quail Initiative and learn more about some new hunting regulations for the fall of 2018.
If you were born after about 1970, you probably don't recall the golden age of Arkansas quail hunting. Northern bobwhite numbers fell drastically after a peak in the early 70s, mainly the result of drastic changes in the state's natural landscape. But the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission has embarked on an ambitious plan to bring back the bobwhite. To return Arkansas quail numbers anywhere near the levels that upland bird hunters enjoyed in the mid-20th century, we'll need to start with habitat.
Habitat is the key to our quail restoration efforts in Arkansas. It's the missing component, and it's the most needed component here.
Poor habitat lacks diverse vegetation and typically has thick stands of short grasses that provide little benefit to quail and other wildlife species. Good quail habitat will feature tall, clumping, native grasses with clusters of dense shrubs.
This is big blue stem, and it has this, like I said, a bunch form to it. It allows quail to travel around it like this, but they also will typically build their nests within this clump and use a lot of some of this dead material down here to actually make the nest.
The presence of forbs provides seeds for the birds and also attracts insects that bobwhites feed on. To create good quail habitat, landowners and land managers must manipulate habitat with tools such as timber thinning, prescribed fire, and disking. The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's Private Lands program can help landowners achieve these goals by sharing their knowledge about creating better quail habitat. The program's biologist also can provide assistance to landowners by connecting them with federal and state programs and incentives that help offset the cost of creating good quail habitat.
Private land biologist is a very important asset. They can come out to your property, kind of take a tour of it basically and look over what you actually have, what components you have, what's maybe probably the missing link in having more quail on your property.
Once good habitat is in place, it usually doesn't take long for the quail to find it. Just ask David Baker, who used prescribed fire and timber thinning on his land north of Conway.
The first thing happened after we burned the first unit of this place, the quail showed back up. And I mean, we hadn't heard quail on the place in probably 20 years.
To understand how effective proper habitat management can be, just consider the case of Sebastian County's Ben Guerin Golf Course in Fort Smith. Located in an urban setting, the course began a plan 2 years ago to restore native prairie on the edges of the course and in the rough areas outside of fairways.
The main purpose is to preserve the flora and fauna that only exist in a tallgrass prairie ecosystem.
Although the work is taking place on mostly small blocks of just a few acres, quail numbers are already on the rise.
He's kind of right down there. Like you were saying earlier too, wasn't it just a year ago you didn't hear quail very much at all?
No, that's exactly right.
And just that fast in 1 year, we've got a multitude of quail that the last 3 or 4 times I've been here, you can hear them consistently whistling, and they love it, and that's a good thing for sure.
It's nice to hear those bobwhites again. That's right. For our third panel tonight, we welcome from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, Mr. Bubba Groves. He is a private lands biologist. Marcus Asher, who is a quail biologist, and Stephen Fowler, Assistant Chief of Wildlife Management for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. When we look at, we just talked about quail habitat, when we look at an ideal quail habitat, what are some of the components?
Well, you want to have a diversity. You want to have grasses, but you also want to have forbs or broadleaf plants, weeds, some people call them. You want to have bare ground and shrubs for escape cover. So
this may sound like a dumb question, but if I have property and I have a good quail habitat, how do I maintain it? Some people think that they may do the wrong thing.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of have the misconception that, you know, once it's there, it's okay, you know, you don't have to do anything, but it's definitely, that's not the case. You've got to always be doing something to it, whether it's disking, burning, spraying sometimes, any of those, even cutting trees sometimes for that matter. So, yep.
Yeah, one thing that I've learned in the private lands world is, you know, we get 55 inches of rain here in Arkansas, and so we're constantly battling Mother Nature. So the things that Marcus outlined there, burning and disking, are key if you're going to keep that habitat in quail habitat. So,
do you find that people go too much from one extreme to the other? They want it to be too much, or they want to groom it too much? So I guess you want a balance, right?
Yeah, you definitely need that balance. There's a rotation. It's somewhat of art as much as a science, as you got to know when's the time to go and do one of those practices to set it back. A lot of people, one of the worst things for quail or turkey for that matter, or many other ground nesting birds, is a bush hog, and people like to groom. So that is the one end that for the most part we don't need to use the bush hog if we're interested in wildlife, but you do need to use those other tools to keep it set back at the proper times.
One thing that's safer than the bush hog, and what I've kind of told a lot of my landowners is, if you feel the need, you need to go bush hog, hook up a disc and just disc it instead of bush hogging. And a lot of times we just get it to bare dirt. We're a lot better off than where we were. So,
does that create more cover for the
well,
quail?
It just creates more open ground, for like especially little quail chicks, the little ground nesting birds, so they can get around through the little travel corridors, so to speak. So
when we talk about the quail initiative, what are some things that you guys advise private landowners primarily to do with their property to help with the quail initiative? We've talked about some here, but
well, I guess first, when landowners call me, we have a whole suite of practices and programs in a toolbox that I could probably talk for 2 hours a night on. But what I would do is get in touch with a biologist, private land biologist. A lot of times we'll get Marcus to come out with us too. But we know what programs will fit on your property. Some of them can pay you a cash incentive. Some of them are like the Acres for Wildlife that we have with Game and Fish, that just will provide the seed, provide everything that you need, the equipment to get habitat on the ground. So it's a wide array. It's probably 100 programs out there, but getting a biologist on the ground to come help you get it, lead you to the right direction or where you need to go would be your first step.
Who do they need to initially contact at Game and Fish if they're interested in any of this quail initiative or any of these steps that you can take to improve quail habitat on your property?
Probably the best thing to do would be call your local office. Most of the landowners know, where they either come to buy a license from, like I'm in Monticello, so people know where the Monticello office is. So if they call there, the ladies up front will get them back to me. But contact your local Game and Fish office, and you can ask for the POB there, private land biologist. We also have maps and the guidebooks. Usually we're in there, who covers what counties with our contact information. We should have a map on the website too that's got our information on there where we're at. So you should be able, between one of those three, y'all be able to find us. So.
Is there a way to monitor the quail population? I mean, I know that's ultimately the goal, but how do you go about monitoring if these initiatives are working? How do you
You basically want to get some type of an index, typically. You go out like in the springtime, hearing male whistle call counts is one form of it. Another form is in the fall time, covey call counts. Just basically setting up in one particular location year after year, so that you can get estimates based on that, on how many's calling, basically. That's a good way.
You mentioned the financial assistance that's available. How does that work and where does that come from?
Well, the ones that kind of pay you to basically rent land from you, rental payment, that comes from NRCS and FSA. So you can go to those local offices. There's a county office in each county, and generally they come to us and we work on those together. We're very good partners working together, so that they kind of handle those programs, the federal ones, the state programs, like say Acres for Wildlife, it used to be a food plot program, and we thought we'd want to get more bang for our buck, and so we kind of geared it towards quail habitat and the grasses and forbs that Marcus talked about. So we'll provide you with that, the seed, the chemical, the equipment, and the technical assistance to get it in the ground and get it right. And Fish and Wildlife Service, we can go through them. Forestry Commission has forest stewardship programs. So there's a whole suite of agencies out there that can help you with it.
Are there any areas of the state that lend themselves more to quail restoration that you guys like to concentrate on, or is it pretty much statewide?
Well, we can manage for quail in any part of the state, but there are parts of the state that we want to focus on. We have established 7 quail focal landscapes in the state that lay out where we want to focus our efforts. Those are still big areas, but it gives us a place to start. Instead of shotgunning the whole state, we want to concentrate our efforts into smaller areas so we can see those effects, and hopefully they spread as time goes on, and we have quail in bigger and bigger areas.
Is that kind of part of the overall strategy? I mean, we've talked about several things here tonight, great things that you guys are doing. Is there anything that we missed that is part of your overall strategy?
Basically what we want to do is try to hone in on areas that we either own at Game and Fish or other agencies that are already kind of managing this type of habitat. Key in on that and then expand off of those onto private landowners so that we have larger contiguous blocks of habitat.
Is there a goal? Have you guys set a goal that you hope to reach? Or?
Yes, absolutely. In my opinion, it's huntable populations of quail, and if you have huntable populations, you're definitely going to have the same as far as non-consumptive. Because if you've got enough for huntable, there's going to be plenty out there to view as well. So,
there have been some changes to the licensing procedure, and I'm hearing a lot of people talk about that. Which one of you wants to take that on? How's that coming along?
I can take that on. Yeah, we have a new licensing system that went into effect back in March. And basically you have a couple options now the way you can get your license. You can buy them online or you can go to our vendors. Either way that you go, you can get your license printed off. It's going to be on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper now. So you can fold that up, put it in your wallet, and carry it with you and have that. Or the new exciting thing you can have now is you can have an all electronic license. You'll get a PDF and an email, or you can have it resent if you need to. But with that, you save it on your notes or your iBooks or your photo files on your phone, and you have your license right there on your phone, and you don't have to carry around a physical piece of paper anymore.
People always come up with what ifs with something like this, and one of that I heard people discussing a while ago is I'm in the woods hunting and I've got my license on my cell phone, smartphone, and a game warden comes up to me and my phone's dead.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and we hear that concern, and the answer is you have a license. The wildlife officers have the ability, if you know your customer ID number or they just have your name and your social security birthday, they're able to radio in and confirm or look on their computer and confirm that you have a license, and you won't get in any trouble for having a dead phone. Those things just happen.
Okay. Sounds like all this is geared toward making it easier for the hunter.
Yes, most definitely. That's a big part of the electronic license, especially, is to make it as easy as possible. We don't want to have any impediments to hunting. We want folks out there enjoying the outdoors, and we want to make it as easy as possible.
I know we've got some deer hunters watching tonight. Now, how does this apply when you tag your deer?
Yeah, now when you tag your deer, there was a regulation change that you can use basically any tag you want. You can use the ones that are on your license, which when you print off, there's 6 of them on the side of your license, or you can go in the book, and anybody now can use the tags that are in the book. In the past, you had to be a youth or a 65 plus or a lifetime license holder to use those. Now anybody can use them, or you can make up your own tag on any piece of paper or any other more durable material. We are suggesting you have a Ziploc bag, especially if you're using paper tags. Pop it in the Ziploc bag and then attach that to the animal. The other thing that's changed on that is if you have your phone with you and you're using the app or go on the website, you can go ahead and check it. If you check it before you move, you don't even have to have the animal tag, because you have proof of checking already, and you don't have to tag it if you check it right there on your phone in the field.
Now there's also has been a change. There's a new general use permit for wildlife management areas. What was the purpose of this?
Yeah, the purpose of that is pretty simple, actually. All we're wanting to do is take a large population of hunters and be able to narrow down and understand how many people are using our wildlife management areas. And we want to do that for a couple reasons. We want to do that because we don't know right now, out of all the hunters we've got, we don't know how many are using it, and we don't know how to get to a hold of the right people when we want to talk about just WMAs. So whether we're going to survey them about a regulation that affects WMAs or how it's being managed, we'll be able to go more directly to the correct people, and also we'll be able to push out information to the correct people when we need to push out information about WMAs. It's basically a survey tool to help us better understand our constituency so that we can help better manage for that constituency. We just want to serve the public better.
What do hunters, sportsmen need to do to get that?
All they have to do, it's the same way, go online. It's just another line on your license. It doesn't add another piece of paper or anything. It's just one line that adds on to your license of your privileges. And you just get it. It's a free permit, doesn't cost a dime. Have it on there and go have fun on our WMAs.
Very good. I want to talk a little bit more about the quail initiative. Are other state agencies helping with this?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a what's called an interagency quail committee that is made up of mostly higher up, directors and things that help us make, better decisions. Also help us to facilitate collaboration among those organizations. Hopefully, here in the next few months, we'll be tapping into them to get them to do more habitat work on their properties as well. And I think they're very interested in doing this. So.
If someone wants to improve the quail habitat on their property, where would be a good place to go and just to get a look?
To get a look at it? Okay. Well, right now we have several good examples of Fort Chaffee is a really good example over on the western portion of the state. Also over there is the Pine Blue Stem Restoration Area in the Ouachita National Forest. Even now, up in the north central part of the state, Harold Alexander is actually developing into some really good habitat as well. So any of those would be really good examples. Some of our natural areas that the Arkansas Heritage Commission has are pretty good as well. Pretty impressive, real showy too. A lot of flowers and things like that. So.
And hope to have some more on the come too. We've got 5 areas I think that we kind of have work going on right now. That's what we aim to. That's our goal with them is so like me with a private landowner. If I want to take them and show them Little Bayou, for example, where we're doing some quail work there, I can take a private landowner down there and say here's what it needs to look like, and we've got an example to show them.
Okay, we've got about a minute left. We've talked about quail, and I guess other species. You mentioned songbirds, but other species of wildlife benefit from all these efforts, don't they?
You want me to take that?
Go right ahead.
Well, being a private land biologist, I never know what I'm going to get asked to manage for when I step on a piece of property. And the great thing about quail and their habitat, it is probably good for everything else out there on your property. You look at deer, the fawning area that you have out there for them, to protect them from coyotes and bobcats, you can't beat that for that. Turkeys, songbirds has been mentioned. When I went to college, I never dreamed I would be going to meetings about a monarch butterfly and pollinators, but we are. There's a big push for that in the state. And the pollinator side of that from the forbs are great for those things, and all the way down to even water quality. NRCS has programs where we plant these same plants for quail in places that will improve water quality all the way back to the Mississippi River, basically, and hopefully as it gets cleaner, the fish get better.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Great work.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate what you do.
We
for
appreciate
our
it.
state.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank all of our panelists tonight, and for those of you who called in with your questions. For you at home, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
Outdoor Hotline is made possible in part by the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, AEGN's partner in conservation.